All, this is Dr. Mobeen Sayed from drbeen.com. Welcome to one more show. So, I am not a lawyer, and this is not a legal advice or legal suggestion. This is a review of reporting for a Supreme Court decision about the challenges to vaccine mandates. So, I'll give you a summary first, and then we'll go over the reporting. The summary is this, that there were 3 cases against the vaccine mandates. Those 3 cases were from the district courts. They rose to the appellate courts, and the Fifth Circuit Appellate Court had ruled against the plaintiffs and said that the administration has a right to impose the mandates, or they needed to go through a proper different process. The Sixth Circuit Court, I believe, or another court, we'll see the court name in a second, another appellate court decided 2 cases in which they granted the motion of the plaintiffs to say, yes, mandates cannot be applied. Then then the Biden administration rescinded the vaccine mandates in May of 2023. However, the appeals had then ended up in the Supreme Court. Supreme Court then made a decision on this 11th of December 2023 saying that this is a moot point and asked the district courts to dismiss these cases as moot. What that means is that these courts' decisions, the district court decisions, will not become permanent and will not become a precedence. That means if in the future another administration applies the mandates, then the whole process of challenging will have to be relitigated and no previous precedents could be used. So that is a summary of it. Let's just very quickly look at the reporting. So this is government executive, and I have no idea what their own leaning and positions are. Because of this, I actually have the Hill here as well. I have CNN here as well. So whichever catches your fancy, you can read there. But here is the reporting. I thought the government executive and the Hill had the most comprehensive reporting on it. So this is Supreme Court vacates ruling restricting president's right to issue federal workforce mandate. And this is by Eric Katz, who is a senior correspondent. So here is what they're saying. The Supreme Court on Monday, this is December 11, 2023, the Supreme Court on Monday ended the case against President Biden's COVID-19 vaccine mandates for federal employees, issuing a summary judgment instructing a lower court to dismiss the case as no longer relevant. So the Biden administration had sought intervention from the higher court after a panel of judges on the appellate circuit ruled in favor of the plaintiffs, Feds for Medical Freedom, and a union representing some Homeland Security Department employees in invalidating the mandate, even after Biden withdrew it. The ABA decision by the ABA is, I believe, the whole bench. The ABA decision by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit had potentially wide-ranging impacts on the president's capacity to issue federal workforce-wide edicts. But the Supreme Court vacated that decision in its expedited decision. So that decision is vacated as moot. That means any precedents set during these cases' hearings or decisions will not be able to be used in the future. The court will not hear arguments on the case, instead sending it back to the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Texas that originally issued a nationwide injunction on the vaccine requirements. The Supreme Court instructed the District Court to vacate its preliminary injunction issued in January 2022 as moot rather than issue a permanent decision on the case. So then a three-judge panel on the Fifth Circuit last year briefly overturned the district court's injunction, but the pause went back into effect in June 2022 when the full court agreed to rehear the case. Similarly, the Biden administration asserted in its request similar arguments it has made throughout the lengthy legal battle, including that the president has long had the power to set policy regarding the conduct of federal employees, and that civil servants must take their grievances through the processes spelled out in the Civil Service Reform Act. So this is interesting. Sai Krishna Prakash, a University of Virginia law professor and author whose books have focused on the expanded power of modern presidents, called the decision a win for the administration and future presidents because it got rid of the potentially restrictive precedent set by the Fifth Circuit. It also means groups will have to start from scratch if a president issues another similar requirement. Plaintiffs will have to relitigate the issue if there is another vaccine mandate, Prakash said. Now, here, we believe that the United States Constitution clearly does not permit the federal government to force federal workers or any law-abiding citizen to inject their bodies with something against their will, said Feds for Freedom President Marcus Thornton. In fact, the freedom to control your own body and your own medical information is so basic that without those liberties, it is impossible to truly be free at all. We are disappointed that the Supreme Court dodged these important constitutional arguments and instead chose to vacate our case on technicalities. So this is one. Just a little more color from the Hill. The Supreme Court wiped a series of rulings implicating the Biden administration's vaccine mandates for federal employees and military service members, preventing the decision from holding the weight of precedent in the future. Mandates of federal employees and apologies. With the mandates rescinded, the justices sided with the Biden administration Monday in agreeing to set aside the lower rulings after deeming the dispute moot, thus providing a clean legal slate for any future vaccine mandates. So that is the thing. And I think that you are aware that there was, courts had come to a conflicting conclusion in these cases, but before the Supreme Court could weigh in on any of the appeals, the vaccine requirements were cancelled. On the federal employee mandate, two appeals courts had arrived at opposite conclusions about whether federal employees had the ability to challenge the constitutionality of the mandate in court, or whether they were required to instead first go through the Merit System Protection Board. In one case, brought by a Navy civilian employee, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit ruled in March that federal law required the MSBP. A few days later, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit issued a conflicting decision in favor of an organization called Feds for Medical Freedom and various other plaintiffs. So this is some reporting. The links are in the description of this video. The basic point is that the Supreme Court has asked the district courts to dismiss these as moot. So there is no precedent set against the mandates or for the mandates. All of that is cleared out, wiped out. And when there are mandates again, if there are mandates again, then the whole process and whole challenge will have to be re-litigated. So this is the discussion. Thank you very much for watching. Like, subscribe, and share, and I would see you again. Bye for now.